The architecture of the human mind is built upon a single, terrifying premise. It is a premise that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning. It is the silent hum beneath every conversation, every transaction, and every relationship you have ever known. That premise is the belief that you can be wrong. Not just incorrect about a fact or mistaken about a direction, but ontologically wrong, flawed, broken. We live our lives defending against a phantom verdict. We are constantly curating a resume for a judge who does not exist, hoping that if we just make the right list of choices, we will somehow justify our existence. But what if I told you that the concept of a mistake is the greatest deception ever played on human consciousness? What if the anxiety you feel when making a decision isn't about the decision itself, but about a misunderstanding of what you actually are? Welcome to the undoing. This is not about self-improvement. Self-improvement implies there is a self that needs fixing and a you capable of doing the work. We are going to go deeper than that. We are going to look at the machinery of guilt, the illusion of linear time, and the radical freedom of what we might call choiceless awareness. We are going to explore why your obsession with doing the right thing is actually the only thing standing between you and peace. Let us begin with the weight of decision. In our modern education, in our culture, and in our biology, we are trained to analyze variables. We look at the past, we project a future, and we try to calculate the trajectory that leads to safety. We treat life like a chess game where one wrong move leads to checkmate. You worry about the job you took, the partner you left, the words you said in anger years ago. You carry a mental ledger, a balance sheet of assets and liabilities, hoping that at the end of the road, the good column outweighs the bad. There is a deep primal fear associated with this. It is the fear of the life review. We imagine that at the moment of death, we will be forced to watch the movie of our lives, and we will cringe at the errors. We worry about judgment. But this judgment is not coming from a God in the clouds. It is coming from the ego. The ego is obsessed with the idea of consequences, because consequences validate the reality of time. If I do X, then Y happens. If Y is bad, then I am guilty. This chain of cause and effect is the ego's survival mechanism. As long as you believe you are the independent author of your mistakes, you are trapped in the ego's domain. But let us pause and look at this through the lens of radical non-duality. If there is a singular unified consciousness, what some call oneness or God or the quantum field, then there is no other to make a mistake against. In a state of pure oneness, error is impossible. You cannot be out of alignment with the whole, because you are the whole. So where does the mistake exist? It exists only in the split mind. It exists in the tiny, mad idea that you are separate, alone, and piloting a fragile body through a hostile universe. When we believe we are separate entities, every decision feels heavy. We think, I must decide who to marry, what career to pursue, where to live. We ascribe massive importance to these forms. But the Course, and indeed the deepest philosophical inquiries, suggest that these choices in form are meaningless. They are smoke and mirrors. There is only one real choice you ever make, and it is not about what you do with your hands or your money. It is a choice of purpose. Are you looking at the world through the lens of fear or the lens of love? Are you interpreting this moment with the ego, which seeks to divide and judge? Or with the spirit, which seeks to unify and forgive? That is the only decision. Everything else, the job, the house, the argument, is just the screen upon which this internal choice is projected. Consider the immense relief of this. The script of the world, the rising and falling of empires, the traffic jams, the broken hearts, from the perspective of the absolute, these are already written. They are projections of a mind grappling with its own identity. When you realize that the form of your life is secondary to the content of your mind, the pressure creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, peace rushes in. We spend so much energy trying to avoid mistakes. We act like students taking a driver's license exam. We grip the wheel, checking the mirrors, terrified that if we cross a line, the examiner will fail us. We think life is a test. But what if the test is a hallucination? There is a story of a woman who was a brilliant student, an academic achiever. She approached her driver's test with the same rigor she applied to everything. She studied the rules, she practiced the maneuvers, and yet she failed. She failed not because she was incompetent, but because the vehicle she was in was too tall to see the cones. So she went back, determined to correct the mistake. She got a smaller car. She followed every rule. She stopped exactly where the law said to stop. And she failed again. Why? Because a truck behind her was too close, and the examiner said she should have broken the rule to avoid a collision. Now the ego looks at this and screams, "Unfair! I did everything right. What is the lesson here?" The ego wants to find the error in behavior so it can correct it and secure a better future. But the spirit looks at this and says, the lesson is that you are not in control. The lesson is not about driving. The lesson is about surrender. Maybe, just maybe, you weren't supposed to get the license that day. Maybe the frustration you feel is simply the friction of your will grinding against the reality of what is. This brings us to the concept of the involuntary miracle. We think miracles are things we summon. We think we manifest them through vision boards or intense prayer. But a true miracle is involuntary. It is what happens when you get out of the way. It should not be under conscious control, because conscious control is usually code for ego control. When you stop trying to steer the river, you realize the current knows where it is going. This is the shift from, quote, complicated decision-making to choiceless awareness. In the ego's world, decision-making is agonizing. You weigh the pros and cons, you anticipate outcomes, you manage risks. It is exhausting. It burns through your neuroglucose and leaves you depleted. Choiceless awareness is different. It is a state of being where the doer dissolves. You are no longer the frantic pilot trying to keep the plane in the air. You are the passenger, or better yet, the sky through which the plane flies. You simply observe. You witness the impulse to move, to speak, to act, and you follow it without resistance. There is no friction. There is no, "I hope this works." There is just the unfolding of the now. In this state, you might still apply for a job, or end a relationship, or turn left instead of right. But the quality of the action is different. It is not born of fear. It is not born of a need to get something. It is born of a deep, resonant yes to the moment. And because there is no self-interest involved, no desire to hoard, to win, to prove, there is no guilt. Guilt requires a timeline. It requires a past you who messed up and a future you who must pay the price. But when you step into choiceless awareness, you step out of time. You realize that the past is a memory trace occurring in the present, and the future is an imagination occurring in the present. If there is only. Now, when could the mistake possibly have happened? Let us go deeper into this rabbit hole of time and guilt. To understand why we feel like we are constantly making mistakes, we have to look at how we perceive causality. We are conditioned to believe in a linear chain. I did this, therefore that happened. If I hadn't said that mean thing, he wouldn't have left. If I had studied harder, I would be rich. This is the tyranny of if only. It is a mental torture chamber, but mystics and quantum theorists alike have hinted at something stranger. The idea that cause and effect are not separate events on a timeline, but simultaneous occurrences in the mind. The Course suggests that the world we see is a projection of an internal condition. We are not upset because someone shouted at us. We are upset because we have a reservoir of guilt and fear inside, and we have hired the person shouting at us to act as a witness to that guilt. We project the script outward, so we don't have to look at the source within. When you understand this, the concept of a mistake in form collapses. The person who cut you off in traffic? Not a mistake. The job you lost? Not a mistake. The illness? Not a mistake. These are externalizations of an internal call for healing. They are feedback loops. If you react with judgment, you solidify the illusion. If you react with forgiveness, which is simply the recognition that nothing real has been damaged. You dissolve the illusion. This is why the obsession with specific decisions is a trap. We agonize. Should I buy the blue car or the red car? The ego thinks the happiness depends on the car. The spirit knows that peace depends on the mind that drives it. You can be miserable in a Ferrari and enlightened on a bicycle. The form does not matter. The purpose matters. There is a profound section in the text discussing the rules for decision. It simplifies the chaos of human life down to two primary rules. If you can master these, you escape the labyrinth. The first rule is deceptively simple. Decide the kind of day you want to have. This doesn't mean I want to win the lottery today. It means deciding the internal quality of your experience. I want a day of peace. I want a day of no judgment. I want a happy day. When you set this purpose, you are calibrating your mind. You are telling your reticular activating system and your spiritual guidance system what to look for. The second rule is the kicker. If I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. If I make no decisions by myself, what does that mean? It means you resign as the solitary CEO of your life. You stop relying on your limited, past-based data to navigate the infinite complexity of the present. You ask for guidance. You lean into that intuition, which is not of the ego. You become a co-creator rather than a lone wolf. When you forget this, when you find yourself angry, anxious, or confused, it is because you have tried to take the steering wheel back. You have decided that you know better than the universe. You have decided that this moment is wrong and needs to be fixed by you. There is a remedy for this state of contraction. It is a phrase, a mantra, a circuit breaker for the ego. When you are spiraling into doubt, you say, I have no question. I forgot what to decide. This sounds abstract, perhaps even nonsensical to the logical mind. I have no question, but think about it. Every anxiety you have is a question. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I run out of money? These questions have no answers because they are based on illusions. They are questions about which dream is preferable. Do I prefer the nightmare where I am lonely or the nightmare where I am overwhelmed? By saying, I have no question, you are stopping the interrogation. You are putting down the clipboard. You are admitting that you do not know what the outcome should be. And in that, I don't know, there is immense power. It is the 0 point. It is the emptiness where the Holy Spirit can enter. I forgot what to decide. You forgot that your only decision was to be happy. You got lost in the details of the milk, the money, and the traffic. And you forgot the purpose. You forgot that you are here to extend love, not to manage outcomes. Let's return to the driving analogy because it is so visceral. Imagine you are in that car again. You failed the test 3 times. The ego is screaming about incompetence, about the unfairness of the truck, about the blizzard that canceled the second appointment. The ego wants to analyze the data to prevent future pain. But from the higher perspective, the perspective of the script that is already written, your failure to get the license was necessary. It was a perfect, flawless unfolding. Why? Maybe it saved you from an accident that would have happened if you had driven that week. Maybe the frustration was the exact heat required to melt a stubborn chunk of pride in your heart. Maybe it was just a lesson in humor. When the woman in the story finally let go, she realized something profound. It wasn't about the license. It was never about the license. It was about her attachment to how she thought her life should look. She was a, quote, student, and good students pass tests. The universe loved her enough to fail her, just to break that brittle identity. And then, she found herself driving, without a license, perfectly, smoothly, involuntarily. She turned to her passenger and said, "Pretty good for someone who doesn't have a license, eh?" That is the state of flow. The you who needs the credentials, the validation, the stamp of approval, that you is an obstruction. When that you steps aside, the driving happens by itself. We are terrified of this involuntary nature. We think if we don't control it, we will become chaotic, we will hurt people. But look at the chaos the ego has created with its control. Look at the wars, the stress, the destruction of the planet, all born from the idea that we know what is best. The involuntary flow of the miracle is the flow of nature itself. It is the same intelligence that beats your heart and grows the forests. It does not make mistakes. So how do we live this? How do we walk into a boardroom or a family dinner or a hospital room with this philosophy? It requires a specific kind of self-inquiry. It requires becoming the watcher of your own mind. You have to start catching your stereotypical thinking. Watch how quickly you judge. All men are. She is always so. This situation is a disaster. These are not observations. They are judgments. They are conclusions. And every conclusion you draw is a prison bar you place in front of your own face. When you say, "This is a disaster," you have collapsed the quantum wave function into a disaster. You have stopped looking for the miracle. You have stopped asking, "What is this for?" and decided, "This is bad." The practice is to stop drawing conclusions, to live in a state of maybe. Maybe this job loss is a tragedy, or maybe it is the door to my destiny. I don't know. In that suspension of judgment, you remain fluid, you remain teachable. This is what forgiveness truly is. We think forgiveness is saying, "You hurt me, but I'm noble, so I let it go." No. True forgiveness is saying, "I renounce my interpretation of this event. I thought you hurt me, but maybe I was just seeing my own shadow. I am willing to see this differently." It is about unwinding the belief in cause and effect. We hold on to our grievances because we think they protect us. If I forgive him, he might do it again. We think the grievance causes safety. But the grievance causes stress. It causes illness. It keeps the trauma alive in the body. The ultimate liberation comes when you realize that you, the real you, have never done anything wrong. This is the hardest pill for the ego to swallow. The ego loves its sins. It wears its guilt like a heavy velvet cloak. "Look how much I suffer for my mistakes," it says. "Surely I am worthy of punishment." But if you are a creation of the infinite, you cannot be flawed. A wave cannot be a wrong wave. It is just water moving. You are the movement of life. The things you did in the past, the hurts, the failures, were done by a masked character you momentarily believed was you. They were done in a state of sleep. You do not judge a man for what he does in a nightmare. You just wake him up. This awakening is the recognition of innocence. Not innocence as in "I didn't break the vase," but innocence as in "I am not a body." When you touch this place, even for a second, the guilt evaporates. And without guilt, fear cannot exist. And without fear, the future is no longer a threat. You stop counting the good deeds and the bad deeds. You throw away the list. You realize that the Santa Claus God, making a list, checking it twice, is a nursery rhyme for children, not a theology for adults. You are not on trial. You never were. The life review jar you keep on your shelf? Empty it. Break it. There is no courtroom waiting for you. There is only the merging of the drop back into the ocean. And the ocean does not judge the drop for having been a cloud. This brings us back to the practical application of, "I'm never upset for the reason I think." This is lesson 5 in the workbook of the course. It is a master key. When you are angry at your spouse for not buying the milk, you are not angry about the milk. You are angry because you have projected your expectation of fulfillment onto them, and they failed to be your savior. You are angry because you believe your peace comes from outside of you. You are seeing the past. You are seeing your mother, your father, your ex. You are seeing a long line of people who disappointed you, and you are pasting their faces onto the person standing in front of you. You are hallucinating. My thoughts are images I have made. We live in a gallery of our own paintings, convinced they are windows. We paint a scary world and then hide under the bed. The work, the only real work, is to realize we are the painter. And we can put down the brush. Or better yet, we can hand the brush to something that knows how to paint only light. So where do we go from here? We go into the silence. We practice the holy instant, a moment where we suspend all judgment of the past and all fear of the future. We just exist. In that existence, we are choiceless. We are just awareness. And in that awareness, we find that we are not the erratic driver crashing into cones. We are the road. We are the journey. We are the destination. Stop trying to fix the dream. You cannot fix a dream while you are still sleeping. You can only wake up. And waking up is not a heavy lift. It is a gentle opening. It is the realization that the mistake you are trying to correct never actually happened. You are safe, you are whole, and you are, quite literally, perfect.